Hello friends, my name is Ieva and welcome to the third episode of What I Read in 2022. I thought I'll switch out the earrings for this episode. As if it's not obvious that I'm filming these intros at one go. In my previous episodes, I talked about these books.
A Fault in Our Stars by John Green, Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas, Silverarum by Kristina Sabadowskaite, The Cabinet of Calm, Soothing Words for Troubled Times by Paul Anthony Jones, Silverarum 2 by Kristina Sabadowskaite, Orphan Monster Spy by Matt Killeen, The Berry Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, Mad About the House by Kate Watson-Smith.
Today, you will hear me talk about these books: Ghost Bride by Yang Zi-Chu, Interworld by Neil Gaiman and Michael Reeves, How to Hate Your Neighbor by Sophie Sullivan, Crooked Kingdom by Lee Bardugo, Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, and The Little Book of Humanist Weddings by Andrew Cobson and Alice Roberts. Here I have another book which I enjoyed as a translation to Lithuanian. So this one, it's called Ghost Bride. So I absolutely loved the idea of this book. Maybe the execution wasn't as well made as I expected it to be. But yeah, so it was filled with a lot of Chinese folklore, which was new to me, and it was like really refreshing to read about afterlife and their traditions and their beliefs, what Chinese people believe is gonna happen in the afterlife. So that was all new to me and very fascinating. So I loved that aspect of it. So the main girl in this book is hoping to get married, and it's becoming a bit tricky for her because her family has debts and it's not that easy to do when you don't have any money. And then a very wealthy and well-respected family gives an offer to this girl's family. They are offering her to marry their dead son. This sort of arrangement, it does happen sometimes when people want to calm down the ghosts, and usually it happens between two lovers when one of them unfortunately passes away. But in this girl's case, she never actually properly met the guy, so it's a bit weird that they are offering this offer to her, and she's not very keen to get married to that dead guy. Because, well, obviously she would like to have a living husband. And then that dead guy starts appearing in her dreams, and he's not very pleasant. He's really insistent that she would marry him, and she's a bit terrified, as you probably would in her case. She doesn't want to get married to him, and she wants him to stop appearing in her dreams. So yeah, some things happen and she ends up in the afterlife. She is technically alive when she arrives there. That's when her journey begins. She's trying to figure out what happened to the guy, because there's a sort of a mystery about his death. So she wants to find out what happened to him, and she also wants to find a way to make him stop wanting to marry her. So that's what she does. She just goes around afterlife trying to figure out things. Overall, the book did get pretty slow in some parts. It is nicely written, but I did have to remind myself that this was set in 1800s and that the girl was never allowed to walk around on her own. She was always with someone would follow her. And yeah, that's why I had to remind myself that she probably never met other people on her own. So when she meets someone and she speaks with them, she sort of starts falling in love with them after speaking with them for 2 minutes, which I thought was pretty silly, but you know, she never met anyone on her own, so I guess it does make sense that she sort of has feelings for them. I think my only problem with this book was the lack of the, I don't know, bigger purpose. Because when the girl arrives to the afterlife, there really isn't any goal that she needs to do. She sort of like wanders around and then suddenly decides to follow one character, and then she sort of gets distracted, she does the other thing, and so on. And so there really isn't any like straight line or straight purpose, and she just sort of does things there. So it sometimes just feels like she's running around doing stuff. Just stuff. So the ending was okay. It was easy to predict. Overall, I had enjoyable time with this book. It wasn't the best that I read this year, but it definitely wasn't the worst. It was okay. And another book I want to mention is this one. It's Interworld. I picked it up because of this name. I've read books by Neil Gaiman and I had enjoyed them a lot. So I picked this one up, and this one had such big Star Wars Bad Batch vibes. I just, once I've noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. Which wasn't a bad thing at all. I think it was great. So the thing that was similar to both of those things was that our main boy, he suddenly realizes that there's these other worlds where there's different versions of him in those worlds. So basically he exists in all those different worlds. A different version of him exists, but all of those versions, they are like special. I think they're called like walkers because they can walk from one world to another, something like that. So yeah, that's the thing that I thought was like very Bad Batch vibes, because they were technically the same person as the clones were, but they all had like different like abilities, or they looked slightly different, exactly as the Bad Batch guys. So yeah, that was the thing I really loved about this book, especially towards the second half of the book, where the main character is put in a team and all the team members, as I mentioned, have different abilities and personalities. I had such great time with this book. The only thing is, I really wish I read it when I was like 14 years old. It did feel very young adult book. I'm not sure, I think it might be a trilogy. There's definitely a second book, which I've decided not to pick it up. Yeah, I think it's just a bit too young for me to enjoy. The next book I read was this one. Yeah, I keep trying the contemporary romance books. I think I've already noticed a pattern. I do try at least one of those each year. And it's usually with my friend for our two-person reading group. I don't know why. I guess we just really want to like this type of books. Those are like considered easy reads and stuff like that, so it should be enjoyable. I don't know, this one was so boring, to be completely honest. It just felt very slow and very repetitive, and nothing was really happening in it. Even though the premise of it did sound really good. It was about a girl who moves into her new house, or old house, which she needs to fix up, and she has a neighbor who wants to buy that house to expand his own property, but she obviously doesn't want to sell the house to him, and that's where their conflict starts. So it says it's enemies to lovers story, but I do think that the word enemies is a bit too strong for this particular couple. All of their conflicts and all of their arguments, they don't feel that strong, if that makes sense. Now, I did enjoy the characters. I think they were quite well developed, and I did enjoy the parts about designing the houses, making renovations. Those were quite fun. But yeah, overall I thought it was way too slow. There were points in the story where I thought that I could just give the book up, but I finished it because we were reading that with a friend, so I didn't want to let her down. But if I was reading that on my own, I would move it to did not finish. I'm sure I will keep trying the contemporary romance at least once a year. I think it's the same as with classics. I really want to like them and I really want to read more of them, but I don't know, I don't think I've met the right contemporary romance book yet. I'm not giving up on them completely because I'm sure they can be enjoyable and fun, but not this one. Now, the next book I finished after the romance book was it was like a special piece of cake you keep just to enjoy it at the time when you really need it. So it was this book. This is the second book for Six of Crows duology, and I knew I'm gonna like it. I didn't think I'm gonna like it that much, but yeah, it was great. It was all I needed, because after reading that romance book there was another book which I marked as did not finish. So I was feeling a bit down. Nothing I was picking up was sparking joy to me, to be honest. So yeah, I just thought, you know what, I think it's time for this bad boy, and it was great. Considering how slow I am reading books, I read this. This is quite thick for me, to be honest. This is 546 pages, and I read it exactly within a month. But yeah, absolutely the greatest book. So obviously it follows the same characters as in Six of Crows, and I already was pretty in love with them. So it was just like meeting old friends and just following their adventures again, and I was already caring about them, so it was like really nice to pick up and follow their new adventures. I was immediately sucked into this one. It's really fast-paced, there's so much going on, and there's really not a second to get bored because there's so many twists and turns and schemes and things happening not according to plan. It's just great. I don't know what else to say. I think I said word great like 100 times already, but I just really loved it. As I said, I love the characters, I love their interactions with each other, I love the humor, I love the tension, even the heartbreaking moments. Those were, I mean, I was wondering why that happened, but yeah, was it necessary? But it did touch me. I did have to, well, I had to close the book and just breathe for a couple of minutes just to calm down. Absolutely enjoyable read. Recommend to anyone. And the book I finished this morning, but there's something wrong with the cover. I will find a different image of it. I read Discovery of Witches. I did read it in Lithuanian. It left me confused, to be honest. First half of the book was really good. I loved it. It was such dark academia vibes because the majority of the action was happening in university library. I think it was autumn, there's a lot of mist, and it's just absolutely great. But yeah, that was only the first half of the book, and then I don't know what happened to the second half of the book. It became so boring. Nothing was happening. The characters were just preparing for stuff that's gonna happen in the next book, but I was so annoyed with the preparations, to be honest, that I don't think I'm gonna pick up the next one. I'm not tempted at all. So in this book we are following Diane, who is a historian. She is also a witch and she is aware of that, but she is not using her powers. Basically, she just studies like really old manuscripts of alchemy and stuff like that in the nice university library. That's her job, to just study those. And yeah, then something happens that sparks everyone's attention. So all of the other various beings get interested in Diane. So all the vampires and other witches are very interested in her. That's when she meets a very attractive vampire, and one thing leads to another. And then the book turns into, I don't know, a very close retelling of Twilight, which at first I didn't really mind because I do love Twilight, but it was oddly similar. I did have to actually look up when was the Twilight published and when was this one published. So yeah, this one came after Twilight. However, the second part of the book, it just became so boring. I think the only thing they did was literally preparing for the other books. It didn't spark my interest. And also I do have some questions to Diane about the relationship. She, I don't know, she doesn't question him much. Which... you only just met him. That was Discovery of Witches. And yeah, that's another series which I'm not gonna continue. Let's move on to the next one. Now, I finished this little book last night. I did take it as an inspiration for planning my own wedding. I don't know how I felt about it. It was like really nicely made. It had like really nice design. Let me show you. Like, I don't know, these small little details like flowers and other stuff. It's just very beautifully made. I did like some of the ideas in here. It definitely did its job to inspire me thinking about my own wedding. It's a nice and easy read if you are looking for inspiration for your own wedding. There we are. We are halfway through this project that took me a year to film. Honestly, I can't wait to be done with it. So let's meet same time, same place tomorrow to talk about these books. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, Goodbye Things on Minimalist Living by Fumio Sasaki, The Garden Organic Book of Compost by Pauline Pierce, and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. Thank you very much for watching this video. I have 2 more coming this week, and as I mentioned, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!